think you'll scare me with your phone?
No, I'm just protecting myself.
Protecting yourself from what? I'm the one who should be scared. You're standing way too close to my building.
I'm waiting for my ride, that's all.
People like you always say that.
People like me, meaning black.
If you didn't want people to assume things, you wouldn't be lurking around.
I'm not lurking, I'm standing on a...
Jessica Hartwell had been living in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood for 6 years. Her home was a beautifully updated brick townhouse on a quiet, tree-lined street where home prices had been climbing year after year, and the mix of people living there had gotten noticeably whiter. Before that March day, she'd never once called the police or filed any kind of report. She'd never thought of herself as someone with racial prejudices. In fact, she saw herself as open-minded and fair. She cast her votes for progressive candidates, gave money to organizations fighting for justice, and posted content online about the importance of equality. But when she spotted a black man standing outside her building on a chilly afternoon in March, something kicked in, a feeling of alarm, doubt, and absolute certainty that he had no business being there. That gut reaction, fed by hidden prejudices and the way media often portrays danger, set off a series of events that would end with her being publicly shamed online, losing a lawsuit in dramatic fashion, and owing $2 million for the rest of her life. That cold March afternoon changed everything for both of them. Isaiah Garrett had just wrapped up a meeting with a client at a coffee shop a few blocks over. He worked for himself as a marketing consultant, 31 years old, slowly growing his business one project at a time. He just pitched a social media plan to someone who owned a local restaurant. The conversation had gone really well. Afterward, he stepped outside to wait for his Uber ride, standing on the public sidewalk in front of a brick apartment building, scrolling on his phone and thinking about what he'd do the rest of the day. He had on a gray hoodie under an olive green jacket, jeans, and boots. He was just standing there minding his own business. He wasn't doing a single thing wrong. But when Jessica Hartwell came out of her building carrying bags of groceries, she saw him as a threat. To her, his blackness looked suspicious. The fact that he was standing still looked like lurking. Her fear, which had no real basis and came straight from bias, was about to ruin both of their days and completely change the direction of their lives. Before we go any further, I want to know, where are you watching this from? If this is your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Stories like this one deserve to be heard, and your support makes it possible for us to keep sharing the truth. Lincoln Park in Chicago is a neighborhood that's changed dramatically over the past 20 years. Historic brick buildings got turned into million-dollar condos, organic grocery stores replaced the old corner shops, and the people who lived there shifted from a diverse mix of working-class families to mostly white professionals. The streets are spotless, the sidewalks well-kept, and there's a strong sense of who belongs and who doesn't. It's the kind of place where people feel they have the right to decide who looks out of place. Isaiah Garrett grew up on the south side of Chicago, in neighborhoods where seeing police usually meant trouble, not help. He put in the work to build a different life. He earned a marketing degree from DePaul University, worked at agencies that paid him poorly and worked him to the bone, and then decided to go out on his own. Freelancing wasn't always stable, but it was his. He controlled his schedule. He picked who he worked with. He created campaigns that actually got results. That afternoon, he just landed a big contract, 3 months of solid work, good pay. He was feeling proud, hopeful, ready to do something to celebrate. He'd called for an Uber. The app said it was 4 minutes away. So he stood on the sidewalk about 15 feet from the entrance to the brick building, checking emails on his phone. The weather was cold but clear, that time of late winter in Chicago when you can almost feel spring coming. Isaiah was relaxed, unbothered, just a guy waiting for his ride. Jessica Hartwell came out of the building carrying 2 shopping bags from Whole Foods. She was 34, worked in marketing at a tech company, and lived by herself in a 1-bedroom condo her parents had helped her buy. She thought of herself as aware, educated, and progressive. She'd shown up to protests. She'd read the recommended books. She'd posted the black squares on Instagram during the height of the movement. But none of that surface-level awareness had actually made it down into the deeper parts of her thinking. The automatic connections her brain made between blackness and danger, the instinct to watch and question black people in spaces she considered white, the sense of entitlement to challenge and control. She saw Isaiah standing on the sidewalk and felt her chest tighten. A black man, hoodie on, standing still, too close to where she lived. It didn't occur to her that maybe he lived there or was visiting someone or was just waiting for a car. Her mind jumped straight to danger, to the idea that she needed to act. She pulled out her phone and started recording, not to capture what he was actually doing, but to back up what she'd already decided was happening, lurking, threatening, not belonging. Isaiah noticed her staring, noticed her phone pointed at him. This wasn't new to him, the suspicious stares, the way people clutched their bags, the assumptions. He sighed to himself and made a choice. If she was going to record him, he'd record her too. Protection, evidence, just in case things went bad. He opened his camera and started filming. That's when Jessica spoke. "You think you'll scare me with your phone?" Isaiah kept his voice even though his heart was beating faster. "No, I'm just protecting myself." Jessica stepped closer, her voice getting louder. "Protecting yourself from what? I'm the one who should be scared. You're standing way too close to my building." Isaiah gestured toward the street. "I'm waiting for my ride, that's it." His Uber was 3 minutes out, according to the app. Jessica's tone was dripping with doubt and fear disguised as authority. "People like you always say that." Isaiah felt the familiar anger rising. "People like me, you mean black people?" Jessica's face turned red, but she didn't step back. "If you didn't want people to assume things, you wouldn't be lurking around." Isaiah kept his voice steady, but his words had an edge. "I'm not lurking. I'm standing on a sidewalk. The only dangerous thing here is your imagination." Do you think white people should face real consequences when they racially profile others in public? Drop your answer in the comments. Jessica pulled out her phone again, not to record this time, but to dial. "I'm calling the police. There's a suspicious person outside my building who won't leave." Isaiah's stomach sank. He knew exactly how this could go. He'd watched the videos, read the stories. Black men who did nothing wrong but ended up in handcuffs, or worse, because someone's fear turned into a weapon. Suspicious person, that's what you're telling them. That I'm suspicious for standing on a public sidewalk waiting for my car. Jessica was already talking to the 911 operator. "Yes, there's a black male outside my building. He's been here for several minutes. He's recording me on his phone. I don't feel safe. The address is 847 West Dickens Avenue." Isaiah kept his phone recording, making sure everything was captured. "I want everyone to hear this. I'm waiting for an Uber. I've been here maybe 5 minutes. I haven't gone near her, haven't touched her, haven't said anything threatening. I'm literally just standing here and she's calling the police because I'm black in her neighborhood." A few other people on the street started to pay attention. A white guy in his 40s walking his dog stopped and watched. An Asian woman pushing a stroller slowed down. Someone across the street pulled out their phone and started recording too. Jessica either didn't notice or didn't care. Her focus was on Isaiah, locked into her version of events, convinced she was the one in danger. "The police are on their way," she said, her voice shaking with what she thought was justified fear. "You can explain to them why you're here." "I don't need to explain anything to anyone. I'm on a public sidewalk. I have every right to be here. But sure, let's wait for the police. Let's see how they respond to a white woman calling them on a black man who's doing absolutely nothing wrong." Isaiah's Uber was 2 minutes away now. He could see the car on the app coming up Dickens Avenue, but he didn't move. He wasn't going to run. He wasn't going to give anyone a reason to say he took off. He stayed right where he was, phone recording, documenting every second. The guy with the dog walked over carefully. "Excuse me, miss, I've been watching. This man hasn't done anything. He's just been standing there on his phone. Why did you call the police?" Jessica turned to him, her confidence slipping just a little. "He's been loitering, standing right outside my building. It's suspicious." The man shook his head. "Loitering, he's waiting for a ride. You can see him checking his phone. There's nothing suspicious here except what you're assuming." Another voice joined in. The woman with the stroller had stopped too. "I've been recording this whole thing. She called the police before he did anything. She said, 'People like you. This is racial profiling, plain and simple.'" Jessica's face went from red to pale. "I'm not racist, I just felt unsafe." Feeling unsafe doesn't give you the right to weaponize the police against someone who hasn't threatened you. The dog walker's voice was firm. "You just put this man in danger because of your feelings." Isaiah's Uber pulled up, a silver Honda. The driver looked confused by the scene unfolding. Isaiah held up one finger, signaling him to wait. "I'm not leaving until the police get here. I want them to see exactly what happened. I want a record of this." Sirens got closer, 2 patrol cars, 4 officers. They parked and got out, hands near their belts, eyes scanning for whatever threat they'd been told to expect. One officer, a white man in his 40s, walked up to Isaiah first. "Sir, we got a call about a suspicious person. Can I see some ID?" Isaiah kept his phone recording but raised his hands slightly so they were visible. "Officer, before I do anything, I need you to know I'm recording this. I'm also being recorded by multiple witnesses. I was standing on this public sidewalk waiting for my Uber. This woman," he gestured toward Jessica, "called 911 because she decided I looked suspicious. I haven't committed any crime. I haven't threatened anyone. I've been standing here for about 7 minutes total." The second officer, a black woman in her 30s, looked at Jessica, then at Isaiah, then at the small crowd that had formed. Ma'am, what exactly did this individual do that made you call 911? Jessica's voice turned defensive. He was loitering outside my building, standing there for a long time. I didn't recognize him. He made me feel unsafe. The female officer's face stayed neutral, but Isaiah could see the recognition in her eyes. She'd seen this before. How long is a long time? I don't know, several minutes. And did he approach you, threaten you, try to enter the building? No, but did he say anything to you before you spoke to him? No, but his presence. Officer, Isaiah cut in. I want to be clear. I want to press charges for false reporting and harassment. This woman called 911 and reported a suspicious black male as a threat when I was doing nothing but waiting for my car. She racially profiled me. She put me in danger by bringing armed police to a situation that didn't exist. This is a crime. The white male officer looked uncomfortable. Sir, let's just calm down and figure out what happened. I am calm, but I'm also aware of my rights. False police reports are illegal. Racially motivated harassment is illegal. I was standing on a public sidewalk. I have witnesses. I have video. She had no legitimate reason to call you except that she saw a black man and decided he was a threat. Should false 911 calls motivated by racial bias come with criminal penalties? Let me know what you think. The female officer turned back to Jessica. Ma'am, can you describe exactly what threatening behavior you observed? Jessica stammered. He was just standing there in a hoodie, looking around. Looking around is not a crime. The officer's tone was patient but firm. Standing on a sidewalk is not a crime. Did you ask him what he was doing before you called us? No, but I didn't feel safe. The officer glanced at Isaiah's phone, still recording. Sir, you said you have video of the interaction. Yes, ma'am, from the moment she confronted me. It's all here, her saying people like you, her admitting she called because I'm black, her refusing to accept that I'm waiting for a ride. Multiple witnesses recorded it too. The crowd murmured in agreement. The man with the dog spoke up. Officer, I saw the whole thing. He did nothing threatening. She profiled him and called you. It's on video. The officer looked at her partner, then back at Jessica. Ma'am, I need you to understand something. Making a false police report is a crime. If you called 911 because someone was standing on a public sidewalk and you had no actual basis to believe they were a threat, that's a problem. Jessica's voice went up. I felt threatened. Feelings aren't facts. The black female officer's voice had steel in it now. And weaponizing those feelings by calling police on a black man who's doing nothing wrong is dangerous. People have died because of calls like yours. Isaiah's Uber driver had been watching the whole thing, his window down. Yo man, I'm your driver. You called for a ride to the West Loop, right? Isaiah nodded. Yes, that's my ride. That's what I've been waiting for. That's all I've been doing. The white officer sighed. Sir, you're free to go. You've committed no crime. You don't even need to show us ID because you weren't engaged in any suspicious activity. I appreciate that, officer, but I'm filing a formal complaint. I want this woman charged with false reporting. I want a paper trail because next time she might call on someone else and they might not have witnesses or cameras and it might end very differently. You have every right to file a complaint. The female officer handed him a card. Here's the case number and precinct information. Come in anytime to make a formal statement. Isaiah took the card, then looked at Jessica. You could have got me killed today. You know that, right? You called armed police on a black man because you didn't like that he was standing near your building. You didn't ask questions. You didn't use common sense. You just decided I was dangerous because of how I look. And you felt entitled to use the police as your personal security force against people you don't think belong in your neighborhood. Jessica was crying now. I'm sorry, I was scared. You weren't scared, you were racist. There's a difference. And now the whole internet is going to see exactly what you did. Isaiah got in his Uber and left. The police cleared out. The witnesses uploaded their videos to social media. Within 3 hours, the hashtag started trending. Within 6 hours, Jessica Hartwell had been identified. Within 12 hours, her employer had been flooded with calls and emails. Within 24 hours, she'd been fired. The video was everywhere. A Ring doorbell camera from across the street captured the entire confrontation from another angle. Cell phone videos from 4 different witnesses. Jessica calling 911, her people like you comment, Isaiah's calm responses, the police arriving and finding absolutely nothing wrong. The headlines wrote themselves. White woman calls cops on black man waiting for Uber. Karen calls 911 on man standing on sidewalk. Chicago woman fired for racist 911 call. Isaiah filed criminal charges, false police report. The state's attorney reviewed the video evidence and decided to prosecute. Jessica was charged with a misdemeanor. She took a plea deal, got probation, community service, and a permanent record, but the legal consequences were nothing compared to the social and financial ones. Isaiah filed a civil lawsuit, intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, violation of civil rights. The case was straightforward. Video evidence showed Jessica had no basis for her call. Witnesses testified she'd racially profiled him. Her own words, "people like you," showed bias. Her employer confirmed she'd been let go for conduct that didn't match company values. Jessica's attorney tried to argue she genuinely felt afraid, but the evidence tore that defense apart. The video showed Isaiah standing calmly, not approaching, not threatening. Her own 911 call revealed she described him as suspicious based only on his presence, not his actions. The jury thought about it for 4 hours. They awarded Isaiah $2 million in damages. Jessica had no money, her condo had a mortgage, her savings were almost nothing. The judgment would follow her for decades. Her wages would be garnished, her credit would be destroyed. Her job prospects would be limited because her name and face were now permanently tied to racist 911 calls. Isaiah used the settlement money to start a nonprofit called Know Your Rights, focused on teaching people of color how to document and respond to racial profiling. He partnered with civil rights lawyers. He created Know Your Rights cards. He spoke at community centers and schools. He turned his trauma into action. He testified before the Chicago City Council about the dangers of weaponized 911 calls. When Jessica Hartwell called the police on me, he said, his voice steady, she turned her bias into a potential death sentence. I was armed with nothing but my phone and my dignity, but she told police there was a suspicious black male. She created a threat narrative that didn't exist, and 4 armed officers responded, ready for danger. He paused. I had witnesses, I had video, I stayed calm, I knew my rights, but what about the people who don't? What about the delivery drivers, the visitors, the residents who get profiled and don't have cameras running? What happens to them when someone decides their presence is suspicious and calls it in as a threat? The council chamber was silent. If we don't create consequences for people who weaponize police against people of color, we're complicit in the system that gets us killed. Jessica Hartwell faced a misdemeanor and a lawsuit, but how many others have done the same thing and faced nothing? How many barbecue Beckys and permit Patties have called police on black people existing in public spaces and walked away with no accountability? The city of Chicago passed an ordinance 6 months later, the Karen Act, named mockingly after the Karen meme, making false, racially motivated 911 calls a specific offense with tougher penalties. Fines up to $10,000, mandatory bias training, civil liability for damages. The law was symbolic, but it sent a message. Jessica Hartwell became a case study. Universities used her story in sociology courses about hidden bias. Law schools analyzed the lawsuit in civil rights classes. Diversity trainings showed the video as an example of how bias operates, even in people who think of themselves as progressive. Isaiah's message never changed. This isn't about Jessica being uniquely evil. This is about a system that teaches white people their fear of black people is reasonable and should be acted on. This is about neighborhoods that use police as tools to keep out certain races. This is about the assumption that black people in certain spaces are automatically suspicious and need to justify their presence. Jessica Hartwell is facing consequences. That's accountability. I got a settlement. That's some measure of justice. But money and court judgments don't change the fact that I was put in danger for standing on a sidewalk. They don't address the thousands of other black people who face similar profiling and never get justice. They don't fix the underlying bias that makes white people see black bodies as threats. The real question is, what changes now? Do white people finally examine their own biases before calling police? Do they finally understand that their discomfort isn't evidence of danger? Do they finally accept that public spaces belong to everyone, and black people don't need to justify their existence in neighborhoods, on sidewalks, in parks, anywhere? Because if we don't address the bias that made Jessica Hartwell see me as a threat, if we don't challenge the entitlement that made her feel she could weaponize police against me, if we don't create real consequences that make people think twice before making that call, then we're just waiting for the next video, the next confrontation, the next black person who might not survive someone else's racist imagination. Isaiah's nonprofit grew fast in the months after the settlement. He hired 3 full-time staff members. He partnered with the ACLU and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. He created a mobile app that let people document interactions with one tap, automatically uploading to secure cloud storage with timestamps and location data. He trained community leaders in 50 cities on de-escalation tactics and legal rights. He turned his 7 minutes of terror on a Chicago sidewalk into a movement. But the personal cost stayed with him, the anxiety every time he stood in public spaces, the constant awareness of who was watching him and how they might read his presence, the exhaustion of knowing that just existing could be seen as threatening, the rage that came up unexpectedly when he saw other black people profiled in videos that went viral every week. Therapy helped, community helped, purpose helped, but the trauma remained, a scar that wouldn't fully heal. Jessica Hartwell disappeared from public view. She deleted all her social media accounts. She moved out of Chicago to a small town where no one knew her face. She worked service jobs under her mother's maiden name. The judgment followed her, taking 15% of every paycheck for years. She gave one interview 2 years after the incident to a local newspaper. She said she'd learned from her mistake, that she was working on her biases, that she wished she could take it back. But the internet never forgot. Her name still means racist 911 calls. Her face is still a warning about the consequences of weaponized fear. The witnesses who recorded that day said they'd never forget it. The way Isaiah stayed calm while Jessica escalated. The way he documented everything while she panicked. The way he knew exactly what was happening and prepared for it while she acted on instinct and bias. They said it changed how they saw their own neighborhoods, their own assumptions, their own silence when they witnessed injustice. Comment below if you think false, racially motivated 911 calls should carry felony charges, not just misdemeanors. And if you believe stories like this need to be told, if you think accountability matters and racial profiling starts with individuals making choices based on bias, then hit that subscribe button, because we're going to keep exposing these patterns. We're going to keep demanding that white people examine their fear and stop treating black people like threats. We're going to keep fighting for a world where a man can wait for his Uber without someone deciding he's suspicious. This isn't just about Jessica Hartwell and Isaiah Garrett. It's about all of us, and whether we're willing to challenge racism when it's dressed up as safety concerns.